Some of the more fascinating pieces of evidence in South America have come out recently about these channels and pathways that they've found in the Amazon that could not have been created any other way but by humans creating irrigation. Like, it appears like grids, like a city grid.
But what's fascinating about them is they are supposedly the first high civilization of Central America, that they create structures on a massive scale, that you can see connections between them and the later Maya.
Archaeologists working deep in the Amazon rainforest have discovered an extensive network of cities dating back over 2,000 years. The highly structured pre-Hispanic settlements have been excavated in the Upano Valley.
Researchers expected artifacts, but the moment the seal broke, the discovery took a disturbing turn. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, a sealed chamber hidden beneath the forest floor was finally opened by researchers. The site had remained untouched for generations, protected by dense vegetation and time itself. What scientists found inside raised urgent questions about ancient civilizations and what the jungle has kept hidden for centuries. Follow along as we break down what was discovered, why it matters, and what it reveals about the forgotten history buried beneath the Amazon canopy.
Lasers in the sky are helping to expose these secrets.
It's kind of like having X-ray vision and seeing beneath the canopy without having to touch a single leaf.
The storm that changed history. Picture this: a small riverside community deep in the Brazilian Amazon. The year is October 2024. A powerful windstorm tears through the dense rainforest near a village called São Lázaro do Arumandubinha, located in the Fonte Boa region. When the storm finally passes, the villagers emerge to find a massive paricarana tree, over 50 feet tall, completely uprooted and lying on its side. But this wasn't just any fallen tree. Tangled in its enormous root system, suspended nearly 10 feet off the ground, were strange objects that caught the morning light. Local fishermen approached carefully. What they saw stopped them in their tracks. Massive ceramic vessels, unlike anything they'd seen before, hung in the twisted roots like ancient treasures lifted from the earth itself. One of those fishermen was Walfredo Cerqueira, a man who manages pirarucu fishing in the area. He'd lived his entire life in this part of the Amazon, but he'd never encountered anything like this. The vessels were enormous, beautifully crafted, and clearly very, very old. Cerqueira knew immediately that this discovery needed expert attention. He contacted the local Catholic priest, who recognized the potential importance of the find. The priest then reached out to researchers at the Mamirawa Institute for Sustainable Development, a respected research facility about 150 miles away. Within days, a team of archaeologists was making the long journey by boat, canoe, and foot through dense jungle to reach this remote location. What they would find would shake the archaeological community to its core. The massive, sealed chambers. When archaeologists Marcio Amaral and Georgia Leila Holanda finally arrived at the site, they faced a unique challenge. The ceramic vessels were suspended more than 3 meters above the ground, trapped in the massive root ball of the fallen tree. There was no heavy machinery available in this remote location. No cranes, no hydraulic lifts, just the dense Amazon rainforest and a community willing to help. The local villagers, understanding the historical importance of this moment, built an incredible solution. Using traditional materials found in the forest, they constructed a wooden scaffold held together with vines and local timber. This platform would allow the Aomji archaeologists to safely access and excavate the vessels hanging high above the ground. As the team carefully examined the objects, they realized the scale of what they'd discovered. These weren't just pottery vessels. They were funerary urns, massive sealed chambers designed to hold the dead. The largest of these ceramic giants measured an astounding 90 centimeters across the opening and stood 55 centimeters tall. When filled with centuries of accumulated sediment and its original contents, researchers estimated it weighed approximately 770 pounds. Think about that for a moment. 770 pounds. That's more than 3 average-sized adults. And this wasn't modern concrete or steel engineering. This was ancient ceramic work, fired in kilns without modern technology, created by people living in the Amazon rainforest, potentially thousands of years ago. The smallest urn they discovered still measured 60 centimeters, across with a 30-centimeter height, weighing around 400 pounds. In total, the team found 7 of these magnificent chambers, each one a sealed time capsule from a civilization we barely understand. What lay inside the sealed chambers? The moment of truth came when researchers carefully began examining the contents of these ancient sealed chambers. What they found inside defied all conventional understanding of Amazonian burial practices. This is where things get truly mysterious and fascinating. Inside the urns, the team discovered fragmented human bones. This wasn't surprising for funerary vessels, but alongside those human remains, they found something completely unexpected. The chambers also contained bones from fish, frogs, and chelonians, which are turtles and tortoises. Some urns held seeds mixed with aquatic animal remains. Now, here's why this matters so much. While archaeologists have found burial offerings involving food in other parts of South America, particularly in the Andes, the integration of human remains and animal bones within the same sealed vessel is extremely rare in Amazonian contexts. According to Dr. Georgia Leila Hollanda, one of the lead researchers, they know of no similar case in the existing archaeological record of this region. The presence of these aquatic animals, typically associated with food, suggests a potentially complex ritual logic. It might have symbolically connected death and nourishment, life and the afterlife, in ways we're only beginning to understand. The fish and turtle bones weren't just thrown in randomly. They appear to have been placed with intention, following some ceremonial purpose that linked survival, sustenance, and the journey after death. The urns themselves tell another story. None of them had ceramic lids, which initially puzzled the researchers. However, they believed the chambers were sealed using organic materials that have since decomposed over the centuries. In similar finds elsewhere in the Middle Solimoes area, urns have been discovered with lids representing heads, with structures on the sides imitating limbs, as if the vessel itself was shaped like a body. The mystery of the greenish clay. What makes these chambers even more unusual is what they're made from. The ceramic composition itself is puzzling researchers and suggesting we might be looking at a previously unknown culture. The urns were crafted from a rare greenish clay, a material that's extremely uncommon in this region of the Amazon. Most pottery traditions in the area use different types of clay entirely. The vessels also feature distinctive red-painted stripes and engobe finishes, which are special surface treatments made from liquid clay. These decorative elements don't clearly match any of the established ceramic traditions documented by archaeologists in the Amazon. The known pottery styles in this region include the polychrome tradition, the borda incisa style, and the poco asciutuba tradition. Each has distinctive characteristics that archaeologists can identify. But these newly discovered urns don't fit neatly into any of these categories. According to Marcio Amaral, this is a type they haven't got records of yet. Dr. Hollanda explained that the unusual materials and unique design suggest these chambers may belong to an unclassified ceramic tradition. This could potentially represent a completely undocumented cultural group that lived in the Amazon at some point in the past 3,000 years. We're talking about an entire civilization that might have thrived in the rainforest with its own customs, beliefs, and artistic traditions, and we're only discovering evidence of them now. The ceramic vessels were made using a blend of clay mixed with a non-plastic additive composed mainly of a freshwater sponge called Cauixi and carapace, which is ash from tree bark. This specialized manufacturing technique shows sophisticated knowledge of materials and pottery-making processes. The Cauixi sponge secret. One of the most fascinating details about the ceramic urns discovered at Fonteboa is a tiny ingredient that reveals extraordinary environmental knowledge. Remember how we mentioned the pottery contained Cauixi? Let me explain why this matters so much. Cauixi is a freshwater sponge that grows in Amazonian rivers and lakes. These aren't the colorful ocean sponges you might picture. These are small, branching structures that filter water and attach to submerged roots and rocks. Ancient potters didn't just randomly throw this into their clay. They specifically harvested, processed, and added it for very deliberate reasons. When you mix Cauixi into clay, something remarkable happens. The sponge spicules, which are tiny needle-like structures made of silica, act as a tempering agent. This makes the clay more workable when wet and prevents cracking during the drying and firing process. For massive vessels like the 770-pound urns, this was absolutely essential. Without proper tempering, a vessel that size would crack apart during firing from thermal stress. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The use of Cauixi wasn't universal across the Amazon. Different regions and cultures used different tempering agents. Some used crushed shells. Others used sand or crushed pottery shards from broken vessels. The choice of Cauixi, combined with carapace bark ash, represents a specific technological tradition that can help archaeologists identify cultural groups. Dr. Hollanda mentioned that the combination of materials and techniques doesn't match known ceramic traditions in the region. This Cauixi-based pottery might be a signature of an unknown culture, a fingerprint left in clay that could help researchers track the movement and influence of this mysterious group across the Amazon basin. Every time archaeologists find pottery with this specific recipe, they're potentially finding evidence of these people. The haunting burial ritual. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of this discovery is what researchers have pieced together about the actual burial process. Dr. Hollanda described a multi-step funerary ritual that sounds almost ritualistic in its complexity and care. According to the evidence, when someone died in this ancient Amazonian culture, they didn't simply bury the body and move on. Instead, they performed what archaeologists call a primary burial first. The deceased would either be buried in the ground or, more intriguingly, placed in baskets in the river. Yes, you read that correctly. In the river. The purpose was deliberate and specific. The fish would consume the soft tissues of the body over time. After this process was complete, the bones would be carefully retrieved. These disarticulated bones, now separated and cleaned, would then be cremated. Following the cremation, the bones would go through a funerary ritual. Then, and only then, would the remains be placed inside the ceramic urn. Dr. Hollanda described the urn itself as symbolizing a new body, a new skin for the deceased. The vessel literally represented rebirth or transformation in death. Finally, these chambers containing the transformed remains would be sealed and buried beneath their homes. That's right, beneath their actual dwellings. This practice of burying the dead under domestic floors suggests something profound about how these ancient people viewed the relationship between life and death, between the living and their ancestors. The integration of daily life and death was spatial and symbolic. The dead weren't separated from the living. They remained literally underfoot, part of the foundation of home and community. This worldview is completely different from modern Western approaches to death and burial. The artificial islands. The location where these chambers were discovered adds another extraordinary layer to this story. The urns weren't found on natural ground. They were buried on an artificial island, a massive human-made structure that reveals sophisticated environmental engineering. These elevated platforms, known locally as tezos, were constructed by layering soil, ceramic shards, and organic debris to create habitable land above the seasonal flood levels. The Solimoens River region floods extensively during the rainy season, making much of the lowland uninhabitable for parts of the year. But the ancient inhabitants of this region weren't content to simply move with the seasons. They engineered a solution. They built raised mounds that would keep their settlements above the rising waters. These weren't small projects. The artificial island at Lago do Cauixi, where the urns were found, is just one of at least 70 similar structures identified in the flood-prone areas along the Amazon River, some dating back approximately 2,000 years. The construction shows sophisticated understanding of hydrology, engineering, and long-term planning. These communities weren't nomadic hunter-gatherers passing through. They were established societies with the knowledge and collective labor capability to reshape their environment. Marcio Amaral called it sophisticated indigenous engineering, and he's absolutely right. The urns were found buried just 40 centimeters, or about 16 inches, below the surface, possibly beneath what were once domestic structures. This shallow depth suggests they were placed under the floors of homes built on top of these artificial islands. The entire settlement system represents an adaptation to the Amazon that challenges earlier models of Amazonian life as transient or semi-nomadic. The ancient Amazonian megacity discovery. While the sealed urns are a remarkable find, they're actually part of a much larger story that's been unfolding across the Amazon in recent years. Scientists have been using revolutionary technology to peer through the dense rainforest canopy, and what they're finding is rewriting everything we thought we knew about pre-Columbian South America. In Ecuador's Upano Valley, archaeologists led by Stephen Rostein used LiDAR technology, which stands for light detection and ranging, to scan beneath the forest. LiDAR works by firing laser pulses from aircraft that can penetrate gaps in the vegetation and map the ground surface below. What it revealed was absolutely stunning. Hidden beneath the jungle were the remains of a massive network of interconnected cities dating back at least 2,500 years. That makes them more than 1,000 years older than any other known complex Amazonian society. The settlements covered approximately 230 square miles and were home to an estimated 10,000 to potentially 30,000 people at their peak. The LiDAR imaging uncovered more than 6,000 rectangular earthen platforms arranged in geometric patterns. These weren't random settlements. They were carefully planned urban centers with central plazas, residential neighborhoods, and ceremonial structures. Wide, straight roads connected different cities across the valley, some stretching for 25 kilometers. These roads met at right angles, showing advanced urban planning capabilities. The cities included stepped platforms, pyramid structures up to 22 meters tall, agricultural terraces carved into hillsides, and sophisticated water management systems with canals and causeways. This level of complexity rivals the classic Maya civilization of Central America.
It's considered to be the earliest high culture of Central America. Everybody's heard about the Aztecs. Everybody's heard about the Maya. But before the Aztecs and before the Maya, there were a culture who are referred to as the Olmecs.
The LiDAR revolution in archaeology. The technology revealing these lost civilizations is transforming archaeology faster than anyone could have predicted. LiDAR has become the Indiana Jones of the 21st century, discovering what human eyes alone could never see. Dr. Vinicius Perepato, a researcher at Brazil's National Institute for Space Research, has been at the forefront of using LiDAR to study the Amazon. His team analyzed existing LiDAR data that had originally been collected for biomass studies. They thought maybe the ground could tell stories about archaeology too. It was, in Perepato's words, a complete shot in the dark at first. But what they found was extraordinary. Their research suggests that somewhere between 10,000 and 24,000 pre-Columbian earthworks exist throughout the Amazon basin. That's not thousands of people. That's potentially millions of people who lived in complex urban societies across a region we thought was mostly uninhabited wilderness. Eduardo Neves, an archaeologist at the University of Sao Paulo, told reporters that previous calculations suggested a pre-Columbian population of 8 to 10 million people in the Amazon. These new discoveries support and possibly exceed those estimates. The scale of human involvement in the Amazon rainforest was absolutely massive. LiDAR allows researchers to create three-dimensional maps of the ground surface without cutting a single tree. Millions of laser pulses bounce off surfaces, and a few penetrate gaps between leaves to hit the ground. Computer software can then remove all the vegetation digitally, revealing the archaeological features hidden below. What might take years to map on foot with machetes, GPS, and compasses can now be surveyed in hours from an aircraft. The geoglyphs and garden cities. Beyond the urban centers, LiDAR has revealed another class of mysterious archaeological features scattered across the Amazon. Massive geoglyphs etched into the landscape. These are large-scale geometric shapes carved into the ground, including perfect circles, squares, and complex interconnected patterns. Some of these earthworks stretch hundreds of meters across. They've been found from Bolivia to Brazil, hidden beneath what researchers thought was pristine, untouched rainforest. In the Brazilian state of Acre, in southwestern Amazon, archaeologists discovered a network of thousand-year-old mound villages built on top of an older layer of geoglyphs dated between 400 BCE and 950 CE. These villages have a unique sun-like shape, with circular mounds and roads radiating outward. This design may be connected to the sun-centered mythology of these ancient peoples. Anthropologist Michael Heckenberger from the University of Florida spent 3 decades studying Cauixi, an ancient fortified settlement along Brazil's upper Xingu River. His work revealed elaborate systems of what he calls low-density garden cities, dating back at least 1,500 years. These weren't dense urban cores like modern cities. Instead, they were carefully planned settlements that integrated homes, gardens, orchards, and managed forests. Wide roads connected neighborhoods. Central plazas served as gathering spaces. Elite residences were fortified with log palisades and defensive ditches. The entire landscape was engineered to be both productive and defensible. Each city potentially supported thousands of inhabitants who lived in harmony with the forest rather than clearing it entirely. This sustainable approach to urbanization challenges modern assumptions about the incompatibility of cities and rainforests. The Terra Preta miracle. One of the most remarkable discoveries about these ancient Amazonian civilizations isn't just that they built cities. It's how they solved one of the Amazon's biggest agricultural challenges: the soil. Tropical rainforest soils are naturally nutrient-poor. Heavy rainfall and high temperatures cause intense leaching, washing away essential minerals and organic matter. This creates a paradox. The Amazon rainforest is incredibly lush and biodiverse, but the soil itself is terrible for agriculture. How could ancient civilizations support large populations with such poor soil? The answer is Terra Preta, which means black earth in Portuguese. Archaeologists have discovered extensive areas of this dark, incredibly fertile soil scattered throughout the Amazon. Unlike the naturally poor soil, Terra Preta can be 200 times more nutrient-rich and capable of supporting intensive agriculture. Here's the amazing part. Terra Preta is artificial. It was created by ancient Amazonians through a process that scientists are still working to fully understand. The soil contains high concentrations of charcoal from controlled burns, pottery shards, food waste, and organic matter that was deliberately added and managed over long periods. This wasn't accidental. It was sophisticated soil management, a form of agricultural engineering that allowed these civilizations to thrive. Some Terra Preta sites are more than 2,000 years old, and the soil remains fertile today. Modern farmers in the Amazon actively seek out Terra Preta sites because crops grow significantly better there. The distribution of Terra Preta across the Amazon basin suggests widespread agricultural settlements supporting large populations. It's physical evidence carved into the earth itself that the Amazon was heavily inhabited and actively managed for millennia. The defensive structures and warfare. Not everything about these ancient Amazonian civilizations was peaceful garden cities and sustainable agriculture. Archaeological evidence reveals a darker side: warfare, conflict, and the need for defense. Many of the settlements discovered through LiDAR surveys show clear signs of defensive architecture. At multiple sites, archaeologists have found deep ditches that blocked entrances to settlements. These weren't drainage systems. They were defensive barriers designed to prevent enemy approach. Some cities were surrounded by wooden palisades, essentially walls made of logs, driven into the ground and lashed together. Defensive earthworks created additional barriers. Watchtowers provided early warning of approaching threats. The strategic placement of settlements on high ground or artificial platforms gave defenders tactical advantages. In the Llanos de Mojos region of Bolivia, the Casarabe culture, which thrived from around 500 to 1400 CE, built massive settlement complexes with clear defensive features. These weren't just for show. Physical evidence suggests these structures saw actual conflict. The question becomes, who were they fighting? The presence of defensive architecture across multiple regions and time periods suggests ongoing conflicts, possibly between different Amazonian cultures competing for territory, resources, or trade routes, or perhaps defending against outside invaders. This evidence complicates the narrative. These weren't simple, peaceful societies living in harmony with nature. They were complex civilizations with the Cauixi, same challenges that all large human populations face: resource competition, territorial disputes, and the need to defend what they'd built. The catastrophic collapse. One of the most haunting questions about these massive Amazonian civilizations is also the simplest. What happened to them? These cities supported potentially millions of people. They had sophisticated engineering, complex social structures, and thrived for centuries or even millennia. Then they vanished. The archaeological record shows that many of these urban centers were abandoned around 500 to 600 years ago, though the timeline varies by region. The settlements didn't burn down. They weren't destroyed by invaders in a single catastrophic event. They were simply left behind, gradually reclaimed by the rainforest. Research from Australian scientists studying the region revealed something chilling. In the 13th century, the Amazon experienced one of its worst droughts in 5,000 years. Anthropologist Michael Heckenberger notes that ancient Amazonians had built fire-resistant infrastructure and defensive perimeters to protect their cities during this crisis, showing they understood the environmental threat. But there was another, even more devastating catastrophe coming. European contact in the 16th century brought diseases for which indigenous populations had no immunity. Smallpox, measles, and influenza swept through the Amazon with apocalyptic consequences. Some estimates suggest that up to 90% of the indigenous population died within a century of European arrival. Spanish friar Gaspar de Carvajal, traveling with Francisco de Orellana in 1541, recorded descriptions of large, organized settlements along riverbanks. He wrote of densely populated cities where, were a pin to drop from the sky, it would land on the head of an Indian, never falling to the ground. Later, European explorers found these same regions largely empty. The forgotten knowledge. When these civilizations collapsed, they took with them incredible knowledge that we're only now beginning to rediscover. The sophisticated understanding of agriculture, engineering, and environmental management that allowed them to thrive was largely lost. Consider the breadnut tree and Brazil nut tree. Archaeologists studying earthwork sites have noted that these species are commonly found near ancient settlements. This isn't coincidental. Research suggests these ancient peoples were actively cultivating these trees for their food value, creating managed orchards integrated with the forest. They understood water management in ways that modern engineers are still studying. The network of canals, causeways, and raised fields found across southwestern Amazonia shows incredible hydraulic knowledge. They could control flooding, direct water for irrigation, and create viable agricultural land in areas that would otherwise be swampland half the year. Their pottery techniques, like those used to create the massive funerary urns, involved specialized knowledge of clay composition, firing temperatures, and structural engineering. Creating a 770-pound ceramic vessel that remains intact for potentially thousands of years requires expertise we often associate with advanced industrial societies, not prehistoric cultures. The cultural knowledge about medicinal plants, sustainable forest management, and biodiversity preservation was equally sophisticated. Modern pharmacology has only scratched the surface of Amazonian plant medicine, much of which was understood by these ancient peoples. Perhaps most tragically, we've lost the languages, stories, and worldviews of these civilizations. The religious beliefs that led them to bury their dead with fish and turtles, the creation myths that shaped their sun-like village designs, the social structures that allowed them to mobilize labor for massive construction projects. All of this is largely gone. The Indigenous legacy and modern implications. The descendants of these ancient civilizations still live in the Amazon today, though their numbers are drastically reduced and their traditional knowledge threatened. Understanding this archaeological heritage has profound implications for indigenous rights and rainforest conservation. Dr. Jose M. Capriles, assistant professor at Penn State University, stated that these findings suggest remaining indigenous populations of the Amazon are descendants of generations of inhabitants who not only adapted to and transformed this tropical landscape, but did so in a sustainable manner. This is politically significant. For decades, the narrative has been that the Amazon is pristine wilderness that must be preserved by keeping humans out. But the archaeological evidence tells a different story. The Amazon, as we know it today, is actually a cultural landscape shaped by thousands of years of human inhabitation and management. Indigenous communities are using this research to support land rights claims. If their ancestors created and maintained these complex societies while preserving the rainforest, it challenges arguments that indigenous peoples cannot be trusted as stewards of the forest. In fact, it suggests the opposite. The biodiversity we're trying to protect may exist because of, not despite, human management. The artificial islands, the garden cities, the managed forests full of useful species, all of this represents what researchers are calling a biocultural landscape. Eduardo Neves argues that the Amazon should not be understood as a natural region, but as one defined by the interaction of humans with nature. This has immediate real-world consequences. Current debates about Amazon deforestation, indigenous territories, and conservation strategies are informed by our understanding of history. If the Amazon successfully supported millions of people using sustainable practices for thousands of years, perhaps the solution to protecting it lies in empowering indigenous communities rather than excluding humans entirely. The future of Amazon archaeology. The discoveries at Fonte Boa, the LiDAR revelations across Ecuador and Bolivia, and the ongoing research across the Amazon basin represent just the beginning. Archaeologists believe we're on the cusp of even more extraordinary finds. The Mamirawa Institute researchers are continuing to analyze the 7 funerary urns. Radiocarbon dating should help narrow down when exactly these chambers were created. Materials analysis will reveal more about the pottery techniques and potentially identify which cultural group made them. DNA analysis of the human remains could provide information about population movements, relationships between different groups, and even genetic links to modern indigenous populations. Current estimates suggest the urns could be anywhere from 200 to 3,000 years old. That's a huge range. Once dating is complete, researchers will be able to place this discovery within the broader timeline of Amazonian civilization and potentially connect it to other known cultures. Only about 0.8% of the Amazon has been surveyed with LiDAR so far. That means 99.92% remains to be scanned. Given that current surveys have already revealed 10,000 to 24,000 earthworks, the total number of archaeological sites could be astronomical. Every new survey seems to reveal more cities, more settlements, more evidence of complex societies. The Amazonia Revelada project, announced by the Brazilian Socio-Environmental Institute, is working to combine cutting-edge archaeological research with traditional knowledge from forest peoples. Local researchers from indigenous and traditional communities are documenting material elements and landscape inscriptions that reflect the biocultural heritage of their territories. This collaborative approach is crucial. Western archaeology alone missed these civilizations for centuries. It's the combination of advanced technology like LiDAR with the lived knowledge of people who've inhabited these regions for generations that's unlocking the true history of the Amazon. The sealed chambers in Fonte Boa show that ancient Amazonian societies built organized settlements, managed their environment, and developed skilled art and spiritual practices. Their collapse, driven by climate change and disease, allowed the forest to reclaim these areas, while ongoing discoveries confirm long-term human influence on the Amazon. What do you think happened to these ancient Amazonian civilizations? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing discoveries that challenge our understanding of human history.